Welcome back to another episode of the Messenger Podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, or if you tuned in before, my name is Malachi Burden, and it's a blessing to have you. We have with us Denet, who has blessed us with his presence. Denet, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Hey guys, Denet Christopher is my name, and it's nice to be here, and thanks for having me.
No, not a problem, man. Thank you for the time. And so we are tuning in virtually, but we are tuning in live from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So yes, there are Black people from South Dakota. Yes, people do live here.
Yes, sir.
But I had a chance to meet Dana at a men's mental wealth forum, if you will, about a week or 2 weeks ago, and his story really touched me and what he's doing in the community. We have similar passions, similar dreams and ambitions, and definitely thought that, or never believe his story and what he's doing can help a lot of men out there, all men, especially men of color who go through a lot of tough things in life and maybe were taught negative coping mechanisms, were maybe
Yeah.
put in an environment where speaking up or being vulnerable or learning to not be okay was never deemed okay. And so you just want to dive in, Dana, in your story. Can you just tell us a little bit about your background, your family origin, to kind of give us perspective of how you grew into the man you are today?
Yeah, of course, definitely. I appreciate that. And so, a little bit about myself. I was born in Juba, South Sudan in 1990. And if anybody, listening is familiar with Sudan or South Sudan and just kind of the history of the country, it's one of the youngest countries, and got its independence here in June of 2016 in June. June 9th. So, my family, my mom and dad, they grew up in a war-torn country. And so throughout my whole life, we kind of moved around quite a bit through East Africa, finally settling in Nairobi, Kenya as refugees. And, my parents in Nairobi, Kenya, they just had the dream of giving us, the kids, a future. And so the hope and the goal was to come to a first world country, either United States, Canada, somewhere in Europe, and truly they didn't care where we ended up going.
Mm-hmm.
And through the help of Lutheran Social Services, if any of you are familiar with that nonprofit, we were able to be settled here in Sioux Falls. And my dad's cousin actually lived in Sioux Falls at the time. And so we moved to Sioux Falls and became permanent residents in April of 2000. Moved out here with my whole family, my mom, my dad. I've got an older brother. I've got a sister, and then a younger brother as well, who, kind of is the reason for a lot of my story, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But we all moved here together as a family, and I've been in Sioux Falls, ever since. Haven't had, the itch to go anywhere. When I first moved here, it's very interesting, coming from Africa where everybody looked exactly like
Yeah.
me. I remember jumping on the plane and I'm like, golly, these people smell funny. It's like they look different. And so just kind of
Yeah.
getting used to being a minority was kind of my first taste at 10 years old, just jumping on the plane, coming to another country, and then coming to Sioux Falls, in my classroom. I don't believe right away when I came in there wasn't much diversity,
Yeah.
within the classroom. And over time, that has grown and developed and has changed. And obviously, we're here sitting together in Sioux Falls, and
Yeah.
just to see us continue to evolve, and there's just been a lot more growth happening within the city. But initially, early on, just kind of getting a taste of, just kind of feeling like maybe an outlier and a
Yeah.
little bit different. But yeah, and we can kind of dive into that a little bit more. But that's just a little bit about myself.
Yeah. And so thank you for sharing. Yeah, you can definitely relate to um, the cultural differences, right? Like I was born here, but I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, right? Urban city, a lot more minority representation, and just when you travel back and forth, you see the changes. But on the bright side, you do see the growth in minority representation here in Sioux Falls year after year. Um, and so, are there any other uh, from your origins that you were born into, or even some of the origins and cultural things that you kept here? Have any of those kind of helped shaped you into the man you are
Yeah,
today?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just coming from where I come from is, my dad is he's not super educated. I
Hmm.
don't believe he got past high school type of education. But the one thing that he knew and he's always taught me is just, and all of us, is hard work, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to work hard to this day. My dad is still working. He's still working a very laborious type of job, which he doesn't necessarily have to. But the thing with him is, if I stop working, then, what's my purpose, or what am I,
Yeah.
here? So he's really engraved that in me, is working hard in everything that I do and trying to be the best, right? So I remember when we first moved here, I was very surprised that, how the grading system was. Back
Hmm.
in Africa, we went to a private school, and they would have all of our grades like hung up, right? And
Uh,
basically where you're
uh,
ranking, right? And so
yeah.
everybody kind of knew how everyone is doing in class, and it kind of became a competitive thing.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to be, the best and the top performer, academically, anyways. And so for my family and all of my kids, or all of my siblings, we were always the top three. And that was
Hmm.
something like my dad, he played no games with that. Like, you
Yeah.
guys have to be top three in
Yeah.
class and everything. So he like that's something that I've just kind of brought with me, and in my day to day, and in how I live out my life. And now I'm blessed to be a dad. I have four kids, and just how I parent, I try to be the best in everything that I do, and that's something that I think has really helped me to become the kind of guy that I am today.
Yeah. No, I like that. I didn't know that. I know. I mean, you hear about the education systems of other countries compared to America, and so but I didn't know that, and so that makes sense, right? It's like sports, right? You know where you're on the depth chart, right? And you try and be better, right? And so
Yeah,
I like that, right? It's not too personal where yeah, this dude has an F and he has an A, but
yeah,
like where you stand, and so
right.
that makes sense in terms of you're carrying on over here, right? And
Mm-hmm.
especially with um your background, your parents not having education and things like that, and you had to perform at that level, right? Just to get on a
Yes,
even level playing field with the
right.
rest of the people who were
Mm-hmm.
born into better situations. And so,
Right.
um, thank you for sharing some light into that. You brought up faith a lot when we first talked. Was
Mm-hmm.
faith something you always grew up with, or did that come later in life, or?
Yeah, no, definitely. Faith has always been something that's just kind of been something that we grew up in.
Hmm.
Being in Sudan, just a little bit of history, there's South Sudan and then there's Sudan, right? And the reason of the war that was going on, it was a religious reasoning
Mm.
behind the war. So Sudan, or North Sudan, has an Islamic population, and the biggest thing was just trying to influence the whole country to be an Islamic country. But
Okay.
South Sudan, that's where a lot more Christians are. And
Mm.
so my family grew up in the faith. My mom is actually a pastor at one of the local churches here in Sioux Falls, and then my uncle's an archbishop in London, and my
Mm.
my grandfather actually started a Christian university back home in Kejikeji, South Sudan, which is a village back home. So faith has always been, in my life,
Yeah.
and with anything, you go through different phases. Sometimes, you're on fire for the Lord, and other times, you're kind of in a valley, and dealing with some things. So there definitely has been moments in my life where it hasn't shined as bright as I would want for it to. But I grew up in the faith, and it's always just kind of been a foundation of my life.
Yeah, was you talked about that. Was Thank you for shedding light on the war. Because we talk about, we read about persecution in the Bible.
Mhm.
But a lot of people never really been in that type of situation, like real persecution, as in like life on the line persecution.
Yeah.
Not just a flat tire or your phone dies in a meeting or something, right? And so outside of, and we'll talk later about the organization and your brother here in a second. Was there
Mhm.
any another point in your life where there's a pivotal moment where your faith really demanding you to take it to the next level, where life really was like, hey, like, where you really were going through something really serious, whether it was a kid or high school or college or where you're at now?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, in college, I went to Dakota Wesleyan University, and there was a point there I was, just living in the world, right? So just kind of doing whatever, partying, like most
Yeah,
of us do in school, and it was actually a time where I had had a little bit too much to drink and made a bad decision to drive, right? And
hmm,
um, I don't know if this was the Lord or whatever the situation was. I was heading in one direction, and from the other side was a police officer. And so I missed the stop sign. He turned on his lights. So I just, being that I had been drinking, I took off. I didn't stop, right? So I took
yeah,
off and I parked the vehicle. And obviously the police found the car. I took off running. But really, at that moment, it was just kind of taking a minute to like reflect. Like, is this what life is truly about? And really, my life, could have gone down a whole different path
hmm,
if I didn't, have that opportunity to, get in trouble, really, right? Because with that, the car got impounded. Then I had to, go to court and talk about the whole situation. Why were you running? Tickets were involved. I was a football player. There was a lot of consequences with that.
yeah,
At Dakota Wesleyan, I had to talk to, like campus pastor and all those things, and just kind of really evaluate like where is life. And
mm,
at this point, I was going to be a senior in college. And so that's a really, pivotal point in addressing like where is life going to be and how
yeah,
your career is going to play out. So I think at that point, just sitting back and reflecting on like, is this what life is about, and is this where I want my life to be? And just coming back to, my mom would always talk about, hey, I'm going to bring you guys up in the ways of the Lord because I know you guys will always come back to it. And that's one thing that
mm,
I knew about. Right? And so just in my shame and my guilt and everything that was going on, just kind of coming back to it, starting to read the Bible, and I actually took a period of time. Funny enough, there was a mission trip at Dakota Wesleyan. They were going to Peru,
hmm,
and kind of around that same time, they were talking about, hey, we need some men to come to this mission trip. And they said, hey, there's a bunch of ladies coming and not enough guys signed up. So that me, I'm, hey, we're
yeah,
going to go hang out with some ladies. Oddly enough, though, like that's where, the Lord really kind of met me. And that was all around the same time. And that's kind of how I kind of made the decision like, hey, I really need to take this thing a little bit more seriously.
hmm,
Um, if I want to, I want to be successful in this life, and if I want to continue moving forward, right? So, like, I think that point, like that senior year, that's really where I kind of had that kind of coming to the Lord and like understanding, hey, faith and your relationship with the Lord is your relationship with the Lord. Just because my mom is a pastor, my uncle's a pastor, like I grew up in it. It's not their faith; it's your own, and you have to stand there by yourself, one on one, right? And it's not somebody else with you having that discussion and having that conversation. So yeah, I mean, I think that those are just a couple of
yeah.
examples that I.
No, that's so good, man. I think a lot of people, when you get to that late high school, college phase, that's when you start to venture out in life on your own. You don't have, your parents influence you 24/7, right? You're starting to get new friends. You're starting to venture out into the world in terms of new, majors and different colleges. You're traveling, and especially in those times, we didn't have the luxury of social media, Bible apps. We can watch church online. Things like wasn't at the scale of what it is today, and so it's very easy to kind of get lost, if you will, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, and so same thing with me. Growing up, I was alcoholic my junior year, going to my senior year, right? So I in my fourth year of college. I graduated in 5.5. My fourth year of college, or my third going to my fourth, man, I had like a below 2.0 GPA. And so like you mentioned, your senior, like, is this all life has to offer, right? Like,
Right, right.
like you start asking questions like, what happens after this? That's why
Right.
I hit rock bottom. I'm just like, what am I to do, man? I don't have a major now. I'm kicked out. I'm an alcoholic. And so I love how you mentioned that, raise a child, he'll come back to the Lord, and that's I gave him another chance. Long story short, I won't get into my testimony, but it's just it's so crucial how those seeds of faith that are planted um,
Hmm.
by our parents or just by a stranger that you meet or somebody who believes in you, because we all make mistakes, right? When it's
Sure.
just it takes a village, it takes a select few. That doesn't take many. But it just takes one or two or three people to be like, your life's not over. You still have a purpose. You have a plan to make you realize, like, God still got me. Life is not over. I still can do. I can be who I want to be and be the person who God wants me to be. So, thank you, man. That's so good. Shifting into um, your brother and what you do now.
Yeah.
You know, share a little bit about growing up with him and
Yeah.
kind of how all that transpired.
Yeah, no, definitely. So Manny Christopher, for those of you that don't know, that's my younger brother who actually passed away in 2021. He passed away took his life to suicide. And growing up with Manny, it was very interesting though, because him and I are very similar. And so we always butted head, right? It's like we were always trying to one up each other. We were both athletic. We played in a lot of sports together, had a lot of similar interests, played a lot of video games together. But growing up though, he was always that annoying younger brother. So there's about a 7 year gap between Manny and I. And so for the longest time, I really wanted nothing to do with him, right? Like, dude, you just get away. And he always try to
Yeah.
come hang out, with our friends and whatnot. But then I don't know what happened. Like maybe eighth grade going into his freshman year, he hit a growth spurt. He got bigger, stronger, faster, and then he could also hang, right? So like we were playing sports and he could hang. He finally started understanding how to play video games, how to do different things. He was becoming an adult, and one thing that I saw early on is everything that I would do, Manny would do. So he was already looking up to me, right?
Hmm.
And um, I played football. Manny played football. I played basketball. He played basketball. Even as far as like college decisions, I went to Dakota Wesleyan, and that's where he ended up going to school. And my numbers that I would wear, he would also wear the same numbers. So he would emulate a lot of things, and I saw that early on. So it gave me an opportunity not to just like be an older brother, but just to try to be a mentor to
Yeah.
Manny. He's doing accounting. That's what I took my major in college, and so there's a lot of things that he did after kind of seeing what I did, and the same thing. My older brother kind of paved the way for myself, and I think maybe that's kind of what my parents were trying to engrave in us as they were raising us is, hey, like you guys need to kind of protect each other and be
Yeah.
there for each other, and that's all you've got, right? And so we had a really close bond, and my sister as well, right? And of course she's a girl, and so she didn't do as much things like we did, as far as like sports and things of that nature, but we all had a really close knit family, and just grew up all together. And so losing Manny in 2021 was horrible, right? Like I remember like the day that it happened. I was in church actually. At this time, I was part of the worship team at Embrace Church out in T, South Dakota. I was playing acoustic guitar, and we played, Peace Be Still, right?
Hmm.
And it was kind of crazy because I felt this, like, kind of this weird feeling, like I needed to just be still, like, and I was just like, we played that song a bunch of times, but I didn't know, like, I had never had that feeling like I felt during the time that we were playing
Hmm.
that. And then, afterwards, I'm having my phone just, it's blowing up, all of his friends and everybody is calling me. And so then, I eventually like call back, like, hey guys, I'm at church, like, I can't take this call. And, they're like, where's your brother? And so on and so forth. And then unfortunately, we did find him. And he's deceased, in my parents' basement. And so, yeah, that's just kind of a little, background, and I don't know how much more. um,
Yeah.
you
No,
want
thank you for
to
sharing,
go
man.
through.
I know you're doing your best to keep it together here, so I appreciate you. Um, how did that experience lead to the creation of the nonprofit?
Yeah, yeah. So once it all happened, you're just kind of all over the place, right? Like
Yeah.
trying to piece things together. And, when I look to my left and my right, I notice like my family, obviously, we just lost a big piece of us. And everybody wasn't together, right? So at that moment I decided like, hey, I need to kind of step up. My older brother and I did. We need to
Hmm.
kind of step up and be strong for the family and also for ourselves, but we need to be strong, right? Because
Hmm.
obviously when somebody passes, there has to be decisions that are made. And so right off the bat, Patrick, my older brother, and I, we started making some decisions, went to the funeral home. We put together a service to allow visitation for some of his friends to come through and just kind of say their goodbyes and just see Manny before we put him to rest. And through that, as we were planning that, I just saw how many people's lives that he touched
Yeah.
and just how big of an impact he had in the Sioux Falls community. So by just realizing that, I said, well, honestly, we've got to keep this thing going. Along with Tristan Techmeyer, who's Manny's best friend, the three of us kind of put our heads together. And after the event, after it all happened, we kind of had that moment to sit down and maybe breathe a little bit and try to digest what just took place, and was like, this can't just stop here,
Yeah.
right? Like this feeling that we just felt, if we can shed some light into the truth about mental illness and how we ended up here, and even
Hmm.
just help one other family not have to deal with what we're dealing with, and
Yeah.
losing a life way too soon, we're making a difference and making an impact, right? So we created Long Live MC. Not really sure what we were going to do with it, but we wanted to just honor Manny and carry out his name. He was a very giving guy. So we started off by just giving, scholarships back to accounting students, football players over at Dakota Wesleyan University. He went to Roosevelt High School, so we partnered with a company here in town, in giving scholarships, and that's really what the nonprofit was. We were raising funds to have discussions and give a place to where people can share memories. And I learned a lot about Manny that I didn't know, just based off of the different friend groups and the different people that he was connected to, and just being able to talk to them through the different events that we put together. And so that it's just that's kind of where everything kind of started, and it's really evolved. Right now we go by the name Better South Dakota. At the beginning of this year, we decided to, just expand our reach a little bit, right? With Long Live MC, he's still kind of the foundation where everything originated from. But Better South Dakota allows for us to maybe reach out to, the whole state of South Dakota, have a
Yeah.
bigger audience and not be so, tunnel vision focused with our name, right? Because I think like the name of the organization maybe kind of says a lot about the organization. So
Hmm.
Better South Dakota is what we go by now. And we've got a team, a board, and everybody on my team um, is very passionate about mental health, is very passionate about changing the stigmatism, is very passionate about Manny, because just that's just how much of an impact Manny made, whether they were friends with him or they were connected to him through me or my brother or any other organizations that he was a part of here while he was still alive.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for sharing, man. That's so amazing the work that you're doing. Um, I can just relate to, you mentioned that you're um in the praise and worship, you felt something in your spirit. Yeah, man, it's like, our spirits just know, right, when something's not right. I remember um when my mom had her near death car accident when I was in a middle school. I was at the movies with my friends, and my mom's always been late one time ever in her life to pick me up from somewhere. Um, and so unless she told me she was running late. And so I remember when we walked to the movie theater, she was not there. I was like, I felt something immediately in my spirit, like something's not right.
Right.
And then later on, I found out she was in a car accident on her way to come get me. And so it was, yeah, man, that's. I'm glad you touched on that. But just the journey and how you're carrying on that mantle, that legacy, that impact. It always reminds me of the time where when I was going through my alcoholism, my therapist, who I've been seeing my entire life, he had passed away from a heart attack during my recovery. And then my English teacher, who I know for 3 years, lost her life due to some mental
Right. Right.
illness and as well and some addictions. And so it was like, how do we? But you see like you said, I love how you said the impact. You see the impact, and then for me, it was like, how do we keep that? Not only like that spark, that flame alive that they had, but for me, it was like, how can I, get my life back in order for what they given me, right?
Right.
It's kind of like, how
Yeah.
can I, you know, um, not make their investments into me, uh, make that in vain, right? And so for me, it was like, okay, I want to grieve in a healthy way. I don't want to grieve in drinking more liquor, right? Or in another drug or something like that. I want to grieve in a healthy way, and that kind of planted the seed for my passion, my what I want to do. So kudos to you, man. Everything you're doing. This is powerful, and going into the next question regarding mental health. Um, in men, especially minority men, how can there's still a lot of stigma around it
Yeah.
of not speaking up when we're going through something of trying to tough it out, can't cry, can't be emotional. Um, how do we break those barriers? How do we break those norms, those mindsets that are plaguing a lot of men?
Yeah, man. I just think it really starts off with the community that you have around you, right? So,
Hmm.
like we were never created to be by ourselves,
Hmm.
and I think as of late, with COVID and everything that kind of took place, it really forced isolation, and I think there's been a lot more situations where depression has come to the forefront or where people are just struggling because we were forced to be in isolation. We
Yeah.
are created to be in community, so I think the biggest thing is making sure, like as a guy, I think women do a really good job of this, where they have their girlfriends that they kind of check up on and all
Mm.
that stuff. But for guys, it's like I see a lot of like memes, I see a lot of things where guys go golfing and how's so and so doing, and the guy's like, I don't know, and
Yeah.
it might be funny, but it's really not, because we
Yeah.
really need to like take the time, like when we're going golfing, right? Like we do things together as guys, but we never go past the surface,
Yeah.
right? So we're in community when we're hanging out, when we're playing basketball, whatever we're doing, we just do it, and then we go on about our life. But just you have your community, you have your guys, and just taking the time to have those discussions and have those conversations and not be so surface level with your guy friends, and just Find somebody that you can honestly be, you know, vulnerable with, be
Mm-hmm.
your true self to. And once you have that, I think that's a first step that we can take, right? Because I think
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more work that needs to get done in, mental space, especially men's mental health. But I think the first kind of starts with like finding your group, and then also like being vulnerable and having these discussions, and just changing that mindset of like men are tough, like men can't cry. I think I don't know why that's a thing, because it's an emotion, it's a feeling. Like Jesus wept, right?
Mm.
Like when you're feeling something, when you shouldn't have to mask it or sugarcoat it. Like, hey, whatever you're saying to me is really hurtful, or what you did really hurt my feelings. That's okay for a guy to say, and there's nothing wrong with that, because we are all human beings. Like nobody is Superman, nobody's exempt from any of that, right? So it really
Yeah,
starts with the community, and then also like being vulnerable and being able to have those conversations, with the guys or people that you have within your community.
that's so good, man. Um, that's so good. I love the Jesus what reference. I think yeah, it's part of it. The step one is us as well, but I also want to challenge a lot of the men who are listening to this and who will listen to this in the future. Take the initiative to check on your friends. Right? We see in the Bible a lot of times where a lot of uh, a person's friends came to check on them or check them like when they were doing something wrong.
Right,
But taking that time to if you see your friend acting out a little bit more agitated lately, more angry lately, or maybe he's more quiet than usual. Um, Maybe he's tweeting some stuff or posting stuff on Facebook or Instagram that's like not like his character. His status says something really weird. It takes 5 seconds to send a text. It takes 5 seconds to call somebody to get lunch. We live in a virtual world, so um, it goes such a long way. Um, 'Cause I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, they're okay, or it's not my business, or he'll be fine. And then he may not. He may not be.
right, right.
And I think if we kind of stop making assumptions, or I want to say this lightly, stop being maybe selfish, if you will.
Yeah, yeah,
Whether it's uh, on purpose or indirectly being selfish. Just putting another person's um, health, mental health in front of yours. Like I said, it can help. It can help somebody. It can help a family, like you said. It can help um, in the future. But this is so good, man. During this season of your brother to setting up the organization and where it's at now, was there a Bible story or a Bible verse or two of them or three of them that were really helping you stay steadfast in your faith, to be strong in the faith? I know this is a tough time, not only emotionally but also logistically with the organization. Was there any stories or verses that you really were relying on in that season?
yeah, man. I mean, I honestly, there's quite a bit that comes to mind, and I think instead of sharing a Bible verse, maybe just kind of sharing a story, kind of like a God story, if you will.
Yeah, yeah,
With Manny, he had a huge impact on everybody, right? So there was a he played football at Dakota Wesleyan, and there is a his football coach, right, had some kids, and he loved the kids. Kids loved Manny, and Manny loved the kids. It was just That's just what he did, right? And kids would always gravitate towards Manny. And so, with the organization, and one of the coach's kids, was kind of struggling, with something, right? And they kind of talked a little bit about Manny and what would Manny do. And they actually kind of wrote us a little something, just kind of explaining how, talking through the situation and how Manny would have handled the situation, helped him kind of overcome that. And it's just kind of like, Manny's spirit, still lives and is still alive and it's
Hmm.
still impacting. And it's so to me, it's just like a God thing, right? Like Manny is still here with us. He's still well. He's still alive, and he's still making, impacts and making, different decisions and allowing, people that has impacted their lives to continue and to overcome, different challenges that may have come.
For the men who are watching, um, and even in women, what are, in your experience, especially with the organization that you're running now, what are some, application, what are some steps and practical things that people can really take right now to really address their mental health, to take steps to really take that inventory? Maybe I'm not okay. Maybe I do need to get help. Maybe how do I help? Where do I start in terms of like getting my emotions, my mental in check, or things like that? How would you? What are some tips you think you can give?
Yeah, man. I think it just kind of starts by just that, like it sounds cliche, but just kind of looking at yourself in the mirror and then also checking your habits. Like what are you like if you're drinking, right? For example, um, why are you drinking?
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Are you socially drinking, or is there something else that's going on underneath the surface,
yeah.
right? Um, you can look and kind of look at your day. I do a lot of calendaring. I usually have my day planned out. It's all in a calendar. Um, like, what are you spending most of your time doing?
Hmm.
And is it healthy? Like whatever it is that you're doing, is it healthy for you? Right. Um, Another thing that you can do is just kind of ask your friends, right? Like you talk about check on your people. Just kind of ask your friends, your close friends with you, like, is there anything that you're noticing in me
Mm,
that's different, right?
that's good.
Like, hey, because I got a lot of close, I would say like four close friends that I can call up at any point, and we talk all the time. Hey, is there anything that I'm doing differently,
Hmm.
right? So I think some of those things, like just look at yourself in the mirror, right? Check your schedule, check your calendar. What are you spending most of your time doing? And then if there's anything that you're finding yourself doing that's unhealthy, addictive, like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Am I coping with something, or like, is this something that I'm just doing just because, or like, what is actually truly going on?
Yeah, that's so good, bro. Check your habits and then asking your friends if you notice anything. That's so good, bro.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back in time, I'll ask like a double question here. If you could go back in time and uh, if you could ask, um, if you could ask a question or or tell them something, if you could ask or tell your younger self something,
Yeah.
but also if you could ask or tell Manny something, what would those two things be for him and you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would probably go with myself first. What I would tell my younger self is be confident.
Mm,
Oh, I think it's grown over time. My confidence has, and like just the ability to know that I don't have any limitations and I can, whatever I set my mind to, I can accomplish. But I would tell myself to be confident. In fact, Manny, his confidence was through the roof. And that's
hmm.
one thing that he couldn't fully understand. And he would always tell me, like, dude, why are you not so confident in yourself, right?
Yeah,
And not like I don't have confidence in myself, but I'm always playing devil's advocate. I'm always like,
yeah,
what if, right? Like just
yeah.
kind of, what if this goes this way and what if that goes that way? But it's just like Manny would always attack something like, no, I got this. I'm the best at this. And like this is mine to lose kind of thing, right? And
Hmm.
so that's one thing I would tell myself differently is just be confident in yourself. Like, what you're doing, like you're about to start this nonprofit, be confident. Like, and then also I guess another thing is God's got you, right? Like the
Hmm.
confidence comes with God's got you kind of thing.
Yeah.
So um But with for Manny, maybe I would just kind of ask him, like
Yeah.
some of the same things that I'm talking about, checking on your peoples and what have you. Because I would always check on Manny, and he's a clown. He'd always talk about, yeah, I'm going through some things,
Yeah.
but then that's it, right? And he would
Yeah.
say it kind of in a singing way, and it's like, ha ha ha, like we're kind of joking, but hindsight 2020, was he really telling you something that you didn't dig into a little bit deeper? So I would
Mhm.
just ask him and check on him if I
Yeah, that's
couldn't
so good, man.
answer.
Because you mentioned it earlier of surface level questions, surface level
Mm-hmm.
interactions.
Mm-hmm.
There's a clip I saw on Instagram, and it's about like two guys. I think they're in Europe. They're going. I guess they have like season tickets to a club soccer team, and it shows like game by game, and you see the one dude. He's like very like just out of it, not really engaged in the game, looking down, kind of like a dark cloud over his head. And the other dude's like lively, cheering and going crazy as like a sports fanatic would be in soccer, especially over in Europe. And it keeps going by game. And then like at the very end, the very last game, you see the same dude who's like dark and gloomy, and he's the only one sitting in a chair. And then the other dude, he's no longer with us. And it's that stigma that um, one, don't judge a book by its cover, but two, some signs aren't easily noticeable.
Right.
And then three, it's we gotta go beneath the surface. I think that's so powerful when you mentioned that, bro. If a lot of times if we're like on autopilot. How you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Good. I'm fine.
Right.
Everything's dandy. Where you know being more truthful. Um, and then if you're the receiver of that, if that's your friend asking the question, "Are you sure?"
Right.
you know, because sometimes when you ask that, they get frozen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they hesitate, there may be something that they're going through, right? And so that's so good, bro. As we close here, I want to ask you this, with everything that's you've been through from Sudan to Manny to the organization, um, family, other life experiences that I'm sure you have, and all trials and tribulations. What is one word or one phrase that would describe what Jesus means to you?
And what does Jesus mean to me? Um, Gosh, I don't know if I can use a phrase or one word, but I just kind of think of, the Sunday I come back to church, and maybe a word I would use is peace, right?
Mm,
Because the Sunday I come back from church, I remember that we're getting ready to get into worship, and they ask us all to stand up, and to sing a song. And at that time, like I couldn't even muster up, I couldn't speak, because
yeah.
it's just like it was so fresh, and I didn't even know how to like how to worship, right? And throughout that whole experience, I remember I just kind of sat there, crying, and just kind of letting the worship leader just kind of minister to me, and just worship over me, and just that sense of peace, right? Like Manny's no longer in pain, is no longer struggling, and he's up in heaven with Jesus, and there's peace. I need to have some peace with it.
Mm,
And I guess that's one word I would use, is just
yeah.
peace.
Yeah. That's so good. And the word says that he'll give you the peace that surpasses all understanding. And I love that phrase because life sometimes it just doesn't make sense. We
Yeah,
don't understand why certain things happen. Um, it seems unfair. We can be angry at God at times. We can be angry at the world. Life can get really dark and ugly sometimes for a lot of us, but it's just that I think you mentioned it. When you really meditate on God and you get close to Him, you really develop that relationship, you'll have that peace where it doesn't make sense for you to be at peace, right?
right,
By earthly standards, by the world standards.
right.
So that's so good, brother, that you mentioned that. As we close here, the last question I want to ask you is if you can leave the world with one message, um, what would that be?
And I just think leave leave the world a better place than you found it.
Mm,
And that's honestly, as I continue to progress and develop and come up with different things for the nonprofit and what we're trying to do. That's the whole hope. We just want to leave this world better than we found it. And the only way you can do that is, by spreading good, by doing good, and by being good. So
mm.
leave this world better than you found it.
That's so good, bro. Well, thank you for the time, Den, and this was a pleasure. This was a blessing. I know you're gonna bless so many people out there that are struggling or who know someone who's struggling. Definitely want to just give you your props, my love for what you're doing. My heart is there for you, and definitely taking the time to be vulnerable. I know it's not easy, and definitely want to just more power to you for keeping your composure during this time on this episode. And you want to shout out your social media handles, or how we contact you, your organization,
Yeah, of
personal.
course, of course, of course. Yeah. So you can find us on Better South Dakota. We're on all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, for the professional folks out there. I don't think we have a Snapchat or anything like that. But yeah, on any of the social medias, you can find us at Better South Dakota.
Yeah, well, thank you, Denet. And this wraps up another episode of the Messenger Podcast. Thank you, Denet, again for the time. And we'll see you all next time. Stay prayed up, everybody.